Hi, I'm Katie Mahalic, and today we're talking with Lindsay Morris, whose photographs illustrate the essays in Michelle Fiordaliso's book, Rejected: Essays on Belonging. Hi, Lindsay.
Hello. Nice to
Thanks
see
for
you.
thanks for being here today. So, I would love for you to tell us about yourself and how you became a photographer.
Okay, that goes way back to growing up in a suburb of Detroit. I'm one of five kids, and I always had sort of a longing to travel, even though I didn't really know what travel was because I wasn't exposed to it. But when I was quite young, my grandfather gave me a subscription to National Geographic, and it just opened up a whole world for me. And I was so taken with it that when I was a junior in high school, I decided I wanted to become an exchange student. And so I was selected by Rotary Youth Exchange to spend a year in South Africa. And at that point, my grandfather gave me a camera, my first camera, and I started taking photos there, and I just could not get enough. And I learned, like, wow, you can go anywhere with this camera and do anything. And it kind of helped me get my mind around this idea of not photography is not just as still images, but as like photo essays and storytelling.
How did you meet Michelle? How did you meet Michelle Fiordaliso?
Michelle had moved to the East End of Long Island and kind of fell into a group of young mothers. There were a bunch of us who were all pregnant at the same time, and Michelle befriended one in the group, and she just kind of was absorbed into our group of friends. And we're all really close, and it's lovely because we all have 24-year-old sons and daughters who are still like siblings, even though they're all out in the world doing very different things.
So, how
It,
did she approach you about the book?
it was such an honor. I mean, I've always admired her writing, but I admire her as a human and just the kind of compassionate, wise woman that she is. So I was really complimented that she would want to use my work. And I love the way she presented it. She said, these are stories that have been rejected, but I think, I'm creating a home for them because they have value. And would you consider reading the stories and finding in your archive images that are appropriate? And I've never done anything like that before. And it was like a treasure hunt. It was so much fun. I just love, number one, going back through my archives, but just going through the archives of, I don't know, 400,000 images. And I really do remember, I think, every picture I've ever taken. I knew where to go when I read certain stories. Like I read the story Scout. I had photographed a Shinnecock woman with her horse. And I just thought, it's such a beautiful image. It's so intimate. I thought the image was interesting because they're both of their sight. She's covering the eyes of the horse and her hair is falling over her eyes. And the story was about finding love, and it's about receiving. And it I liked that you couldn't identify or be distracted by their sight. It was more just like this communication that this horse and this woman are having. And I believe in the story, it starts with Michelle at a human equine retreat. Yeah, and she talks about this horse Scout, and I just knew that was the image I wanted to go to. Not all of them were that straightforward, but this was the one that spoke to me. But just to go digging through the archives with the story in mind was just so much fun and such a different approach.
So, did you have this one? This one's the bees from Migration.
Yes.
That's amazing. This is a story about kind of how the bees are playing a metaphor in Michelle's life at this moment. Did you know right away to go to that one?
I had done a story on bees for Edible magazine. So I did have a lot of images to go through that kind of, not that they need to be so literal, but
Right.
bees are an amazing thing. And that I knew that there would be those images. But yeah, it's interesting because I have photographed many of these images were just to photograph on my own, but some of them were for specific assignments, and they just made sense for this. I mean, the holding of the hands in the E pluribus unum that one moves me the most. In fact, I read it again today and it moves me to tears. It's just that sense of her talking about community and dealing with grief.
Mhm.
And the photograph I took, or it's of two of my oldest friends holding hands. So this couple I had photographed, even though I knew them, in their home and with their hands and their bond and knowing them as well as I know them. And then in the story, she's talking about community and, out of many one, and just the bond that we have and the common thread that we share as humans. It just made sense. The hand holding and the neighbors that I had met spoke to me about strangers meeting each other and communing.
It's funny because that goes back to this theme, right, of belonging and what the book kind of carries with it. I'm curious, when you were asked to do to help provide photos to a book that is themed with amazing essays that were at one time rejected. How do you feel about the themes that you're seeing in the book in
Oh
regards to
my gosh.
belonging and other
Well,
themes?
number one, rejected. I'm like, are you kidding me? I mean, all
I know,
artists are rejected.
I know, I know.
Yeah, it's like kind of the name of the game is rejection, but I think it's also what it's all about, because we have to be rejected in order to go back to our studios or back to our desks and kind of take what we hear with a grain of salt, and kind of rephrase things and rework them in ways that maybe make more sense and at the same time remain true to ourselves. So I love the idea of being rejected. I was like, I hear you, sister. I know all about it. So
So that,
I know it made perfect sense.
what would you like people to take away from the photos in the book?
I like to think of the photos to me are kind of like a pause. I feel like you read, you look at the image, you don't really know what it has to do with the story. Maybe you read the story and you look back at the image, and it's like a meditation, because most of the images are pretty quiet. They feel even a little bit lonely, a little bit solitary, but they feel like a pause in time. And
Mm.
I that's what I find as I go through this book,
I
and it is about grief and it is about rejection and it's about love and community. And it kind of, encompasses all of these things. So I hope that people would take away that and find the time just to sit and meditate on these very, lovely stories.
I think you said that exceptionally well in regards to the writing. I think is very meditative as well as the photography. So you both complemented each other. It's perfectly put together, and I think what I've been doing is reading the book, an essay a morning, and it
Me
takes me 5 minutes.
too.
I wake up and I'm like, okay, I'm going to read one of the essays today, and I haven't gone in order. I pick and choose, and I study your photo with it, and I really have enjoyed that. So thank you for that.
Oh,
For
well, thanks for saying that. And that is a great way to go through the book. I love it. It's just because they're short stories. They're quite short, most of them.
Absolutely.
And it is just like a nice thing to go through in the morning or at the end of the day.
Lindsay, thank you so much for speaking with us today.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. Look for Lindsay Morris's amazing photographs and Michelle Biodorliso's new book, Rejected, Essays on Belonging, at henrygraypublishing.com, or ask for it at your favorite neighborhood bookstore. Until next time, happy reading, everyone.